David Gamble, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing extraordinary, Laurie. How about yourself?
I am doing really well. I'm super excited to have you on Succession Stories today. And as we talked before the show, this is a sub-series that I've launched called What's Next? You and I have gone to high school together. Let's just tell everybody straight up.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure, we go way back. And we hadn't seen each other in a lot of years. And what I found so wonderful and so amazing about going to our high school reunion, as Gen Xers, let's talk about it, right? As Gen Xers, we had our 30th high school reunion about a year ago. And you and I hadn't seen each other since graduation pretty much. And there was no social media, right? We didn't know where each other went in life. And there was a group of us who moved away from home and kind of lost touch. And I think you and I were part of that mix. And the funny thing is you were in the NFL and on a wonderful team in Denver, which I'm of course going to ask you about. And at that time, I was going to Denver quite a bit. My husband's family lived in the Colorado, in the Denver area for like 25 years. So I didn't even know you were playing for this amazing team and having this amazing experience. And so anyway, flash forward, we caught up at reunion and I learned not only about your incredible athletic career, which I want to learn more about, but also your career in corporate America. And I was so proud to see recently that you launched a new venture. So I want to talk about all of those things. And it's in the context of the What's Next series, because there's a lot of people out there who are dealing with change, whether it's change at work, whether it's change with their business. And I work with people on change, transitions in their company. And I thought it would just be so wonderful to have you here today. So welcome. And please start by just telling the audience, because they don't know you like I do, what's your story? Where did you grow up? And tell us about your family.
Well, yes, it's a fun story, I like to believe. The journey has just been awesome, but it does start from being born and raised in Albany, New York. It's kind of cool. You kind of talk about we're Gen X and kind of, how our upbringing was. But I graduated at Colony Central High School in Albany, New York. And I'm the youngest of three boys. My two older brothers are my best friends. My mom still lives in the house that I grew up in. And what's really interesting as you talk about how we reconnected and how we have all these social media outlets to keep in contact with folks, to follow folks, we didn't have that growing up. But the one thing that has been constant in my life and kind of I call it the foundational, is the house that I grew up in. My mom still lives there and we still have the same phone number. Like there's only been one phone number in that house. If anybody ever just wanted to figure out how to get in contact with me, they can always call my mom's house and she'll pick up and she'll forward my most recent cell phone number. So it's really cool that, I could always go back home. My oldest brother still lives in the Albany area. Matter of fact, my middle brother is moving back to the Capital District in the next few months. So I do have strong roots in the Albany area. I go back frequently. I bring my children there to, see mom and see uncles and nephews and nieces, and really have them experience and how I was raised and where I was growing up. And, I bring them to the big, park that I grew up in, and they've gone to my high school and things of that nature. So I really feel like I had a great upbringing. There's nothing like growing up in New York. I mean, it's just from the cultural standpoint, from the the real foundation of work ethic and family values. I just had a great upbringing, and it panned out as after I graduated from high school. I got a full scholarship, as you mentioned. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, and I was blessed to go on and get a full scholarship to play at the University of New Hampshire, where I did star for 4 years and get become a academic and athletic All-American there, and had the privilege and honor to pursue my goal. And I think this is where the whole beginning of reinventing yourself. Before you reinvent yourself, you have to know who you are.
Yeah, and you were an amazing athlete in high school, and I'm not surprised to hear about the success you had in college and after. Did you have any doubts that you'd make it to the NFL? Did you just have that as a goal all the way through high school and just growing up? When did you decide that you were going to go for it?
You know what? I talk about this a lot, Laurie, because there's a difference between a goal and a dream. So I had a dream. Like, my dream was just to play one down in the NFL. That was it. That was, from the first time I've ever carried the ball in youth contact football till high school, when next thing you know, I might be on the paper of the Times-Union, and then getting, a lot of serious accolades in college. It never changed. Like, it was, I wanted to prove to myself, it was that dream to play in the NFL. So the same desire that I had at 7, I had at 17. The same desire, once I was able to get a little bit closer and I saw, the reality of it, it really didn't change. My motivation didn't change. I was inspired by the same thing. I would talk to the same circle of friends. And so that never changed, even though I got closer and it actually became a reality.
What was your experience on the Broncos? I know you were on some other teams, and I want to sort of focus on that because it was your last team. And there was such a great experience that you had in a very short period of time that I'd love for you to share your story about that.
Yeah, so that just being on a team, I call it transferable skills. So yes, I was able to play pro ball, and football, professional football, the NFL, it is a business, right? So these teams are run like a business. You have employees, you have managers, you have CEOs, you have the C-suite, you have all these different entities that are exactly the same as corporate America. So that experience in Denver was absolutely phenomenal. It really taught me not only more about myself, but literally when I got done with football, what type of environment I wanted to work in. My coach, Coach Mike Shanahan, who was the head coach at the time, he was just a phenomenal mastermind. He literally treated me, which I was the 53rd man on a 53-man roster, the same way he treated John Elway, who's going to be a first-time, Hall of Fame, ballot. We got treated the same, and it goes, and you could see that team, that camaraderie, that respect that we had for one another, that accountability. It was just phenomenal. We played for each other. We had a set goal, and we were going to do it for each other. And when you have that type of energy, when you have that type of synergy, amazing things could happen. We were not picked, to win the Super Bowl that year. We weren't even picked to win our division that year. We got in as a wild card. So it was really a great attribute to the coaching staff, to the leadership, and to the players to say, hey, you know what? We know what it takes, and we are going to go for it. And that experience, just being around those guys during that, it transformed even my philosophy after ball. And when we were going through that playoff run, it was surreal, Laurie. It was surreal. It was like we won the first playoff game. All of our games were on the road. So, our uphill battle just to get to the Super Bowl was, we're not the odds on paper.
Right.
And it was, we went to Pittsburgh. No, we went to Kansas City. And we beat Kansas City in Kansas City. And that, they're in our division, and we don't like them, they don't like us, and we beat them. And I just remember calling my brother like, man, I think we got something going, man. I think we got it. So the next game, it's the divisional series against Pittsburgh, at Pittsburgh. And they were actually favored to go to the Super Bowl that year.
Which is, of course, where I live.
Right, that's right. And the fans in Pittsburgh, right?
Oh, yeah.
They eat, sleep, breathe. It's serious. And they have a tradition, right? They have a tradition of success. They have a tradition of winning those type of games. And we go into Pittsburgh and we beat Pittsburgh. And I just remember looking, and my brother, my family came down, and I remember looking at them, and it's like, it was like one of those shrugs, like, I guess we're going, right? and we're going to the Super Bowl, and that whole experience, Just going there, it was the last time the NFL would have 2 weeks. A team would go there 2 weeks prior to the Super Bowl. So you really get to enjoy it. You get to absorb it. You get to, really, bring your family. They get to spend a week and a half there.
Incredible.
Yes, and I was able to bring it all back together. Meaning that dream as a 7-year-old kid saying, hey, I just wanted to play one down in the NFL, and knowing that my family was there. They never missed a high school game. My brother never missed a college game.
Wow.
And to have them all there and spend this time in San Diego for the Super Bowl was surreal, right? So this is 2020 and a lot has happened. But one of the tragic things that happened this year was the death of Kobe Bryant. And the reason why it was so fitting for me and so touching for me, because during the Super Bowl game, my mom and my brothers were sitting next to a rookie Kobe Bryant.
Oh, wow.
Right. So this is before he's the mom, but before he's won anything, he's literally sitting in the stands. That's how low profile Kobe Bryant was.
Yeah.
And he's high-fiving my brother during the game. It was that type of experience. It was just a family environment. The team was a family environment. And you know what, lo and behold, we win the Super Bowl. It's an epic Super Bowl. They talk about it still even today. And to have, the likes of playing along the likes of, John Elway, Ed McCaffrey. I mean, we love his son now, Christian McCaffrey, but I got a chance to play with Ed McCaffrey and Terrell Davis and a lot of these Hall of Famers, and by the way, most of them, we still keep in contact some way, somehow.
That's awesome.
So having that type of real true brotherhood, and me able to just, like I said, I could sit there and just raise my hand and say, I was a part of it, right? And that was just something you just can't explain. You don't put a quarter in the jukebox and say, hey, when I grow up, I want to be a Super Bowl champion. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
But fortunately for me, it was a little bit of luck and a lot of prayer, and I was able to experience it.
And family is such an important part of you and who you are. And that's why I wanted you to talk about family when we opened the show, because I think it's important to your personal DNA and who you are. And you carried that through with your experience on the team. All great athletes' careers come to an end, right? It's just the way life goes. And so your career in the NFL ended. And I wanted you to talk about that. How did you figure out what was next? How did you make that transition from the NFL to corporate America? And by the way, you and I have, the answer is human resources management. And you and I have that in common. My undergraduate degree was in HR. And so as I learned about your amazing career, I think probably through LinkedIn, we got connected over time and saw that you were in HR. I thought that's a really interesting coincidence. So I certainly understand where the role comes from. I always called it the psychology of business. I found it really valuable as I grew in my career in management to go back to some of those fundamentals. You're a great student. I'm sure you're a great student, you're in high school and on college. So did you leverage all of those things to kind of map out the what's next for you when you decided to leave the NFL?
No, I didn't, Laurie, to be honest with you. I actually went to school. I had a dual major in business and criminal justice. So if football never worked out, I wanted to go into law enforcement, right? That's kind of what my direction, my passion was. So HR was not in, the realm of things for that matter. But again, I was blessed to play 6 years. And, the one ironic thing about my 6 years of playing, I played in the Canadian Football League as well as the NFL. And there were times and experiences where I knew the air in the football was going to run out. I didn't know when, but I knew it was going to run out. So I would start to project, what do I want to be when I grow up? I'm 25 years old and I'm still saying that question. What do I want to be when I grow up? At that time, the law enforcement avenue, it was shrinking for me. But knowing that I was going to, have to retire soon was growing for me. So what ended up happening was I said, well, maybe I could use more just my business degree to help me transition. So that's kind of when I would think about after each season, like, okay, I think I was 25. I was playing in the Canadian Football League, and I made a decision that I wanted to try to go back into the NFL, right? And if I didn't make it to the NFL because there's some other leagues popping up, USFL, there was a Europe league, and the WWE had a football. All these crazy leagues were coming out,
yeah.
And I was like, I'm not doing any of that. I was like, if I don't make it back in the NFL, then I'm going to be a civilian, and I'm going to ride with that. And so I did. I had a contingent plan, even though I said I was going to make, the Denver Broncos was 96. I was like, if not, then I was going to pursue something around my business degree. So, God willing, I was able to extend my career and play NFL. And again, highlighted by the Super Bowl championship Denver Broncos. But in doing so, it forced me to make sure I network, right? So now I started planting seeds, right? So during the off season, making sure I was going to, networking events, whether they're golf outings, whether they were, just throwing those things of saying, hey, what does it look like, for somebody, who doesn't have now work experience, right? So I'm 6 years, yes, I'm living my dreams, but I'm also losing 6 years of work experience that I'm going to have to be competing for a job with somebody who's, graduated with me, has the same pedigree as myself, but they have now 6 years of work experience.
Right.
And that's kind of where my transition of my mindset was. If I don't have the work experience, I can have the relationships. I can start building the networking and my contact list. And that's what I ended up doing.
Very smart. Yeah, you're ambitious. You're ambitious in a lot of ways. So that sounds like it wasn't easy, but you were thoughtful about it, and you eventually got into the restaurant industry. I mean, the hospitality industry. And I know there was grocery, but I want to fast forward a little bit to your most recent experience. You were with Cracker Barrel for over 4 years. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So I was hoping that you could talk about your experience with Cracker Barrel, just to give a flavor of what you did from a corporate HR standpoint. And like you mentioned, 2020 has just been a crazy, crazy year. And certainly for the hospitality industry, it's been tumultuous, with restaurants getting closed and reopened. And you were on the very, very front line of that this summer with Cracker Barrel, and had to do some difficult things that needed to be done with the chain. And that was your job. And I just would like you to talk a little bit about that, and your role kind of before the pandemic, and what energized you about that, and then also what that transition was for you through the pandemic, and then your decision to leave Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly talk about my role, for Cracker Barrel at the time. Was the director of field HR. So when you think about Cracker Barrel, there's over 800 store locations across the United States. Well, I was the one. I had a colleague. There was two of us who would literally have to go and support those 800 plus stores. What do I mean by that, Laurie? I would go to the store, I would visit the store, and I would be their HR manager for that particular store. If they needed staffing, I would help them devise a staffing plan. If they were losing employees, I would help them create a retention plan. I would have, I'd have to do investigations if there was any sexual harassment, just all the functions of an HR, kind of in a suitcase, traveling suitcase. And I would visit these stores, and I would work with leadership, whether it was the district manager or vice president, or even a store leadership team, to help drive the culture. So the things about HR, what I always, like to talk about is, HR is, in my mind, driven by two different things: either trying to be compliance driven or driving a culture. And when you have some systems in place, I could not worry about the compliance piece, and I would go to a store and really talk about the culture. And when you talk about the culture, it's the human and human resources. It's talking about people development. It's all talking about people placement. It's talking about people engagement, and how can those three aspects deliver a great experience for our customers. And that's what I would be doing for the last 3 years. It was awesome. I was able to go to different regions of the United States and not only taste the food outside of Cracker Barrel, but really understand what makes them be complete. Because in essence, you know, and what I love about my job and about the field that we work in is how can you make somebody feel complete about who they are and what they do, right? How can I bring all of myself? We talked about my family earlier. There's nothing better than having an employee, no matter what walk of life, and have them come to work and knowing that they're bringing everything they believe in, they have in, and have the most pride in their work and delivering an experience, not only for their colleague, but for the customer as well. And that would be my job. I would help perpetuate that type of behavior each and every day. So our guests could feel like, oh my God, this server, I found out their grandmother knows, and next thing you know, they leave with an experience that makes them come back over and over again. And that's what I did for Cracker Barrel. As you kind of mentioned, we are in 2020 and we've experienced an unprecedented time of this pandemic. And in the restaurant hospitality business, I don't think there's another industry that has been hit worse. But in the restaurant business, it has. And for Cracker Barrel was, amongst the top of that list of how do we look at our business differently. First of all, it was more survival mode because, when you're trying to make decisions of the unknown, you're going to make, unfortunately, you're going to have to make tough decisions. And that's what Cracker Barrel had to do. So I was part of those conversations. What about our people? Whether we try to hold on and hang on and hopefully that we find a cure or things change immediately, or it's that same conversation. What about if it lasts 2 or 3 years? Do we have to close down stores? Do we have to, put barricades within the stores? We didn't know because we were going with information, unknown information. So we made the decision back in March to reduce our workforce 40%. And I was one of those folks who had to go around the country and as HR, I always say this, I joke around saying, I've never fired an employee. They fired themselves, and unfortunately, I would have to deliver the bad news, right? Right. That's my saving grace. Right. But in this instance, letting people go for no fault or no reason of their own is the toughest conversation that you could possibly have. Yeah. Knowing that this job is, supporting their family, putting food on the table, putting a roof over their head, and us saying to them, we no longer can need your services. We think you're great. You did an awesome job. Thank you for the 10+ years. But we're going to have to let you go because we can't afford you or it's just the way things go. I mean, we try to make it, soft as we possibly can. But at the end of the day, we no longer we need your services. And unfortunately, I had to do that. I had to do that amongst, across the nation. It was very, very difficult. Anybody in HR, whoever had to do furloughs or layoffs, it is the hardest thing to do. And I had to do that. Afterwards, as we restructured, it's funny, you find yourself on the other side of the table, right? And I mean, you could see it. You could say, well, okay, they're going to cut travel. They're going to reduce this. They're eliminating this department. They're going to take a little people from that department. And you start to say, and change management, what about me? Yeah. What are they going to do with me? And as they started making decisions, I made a decision for myself. And I think this is kind of the makeup of all the things I've always done. I've tried to, you don't have to tell me, I'm going to tell you type of thing. And it was a great decision and a great conversation with both of us that for me, even though there was some opportunity, I chose to leave. And I have nothing but respect and admiration for the whole entire organization, but it was in my best interest to venture off and not only reinvent myself, but as you reinvent yourself and take different directions or different paths in your journey, taking those experiences with you and understanding what is best for you. And as I kind of told you, that example of me going into a store and trying to do an assessment and meeting the people, I honestly said, what about if I just do that on my own? Right. Go to a business, go to a company, say hello, introduce myself, ask them what problems they may have, how can I possibly help them, provide resources, a strategy, maybe a plan, and I could do it all by myself, right? I could do it on my own. And that's what launched my next venture.
Which is really a buildup of so many things that you had been learning in your career, from being on a team, what that meant, being a leader on a team, being so influenced by your family, bringing that culture of teamwork and family into the workplace, and tying it all together in a field that, you know, we call human resources, but it's about people. And it's clear that that's really at the heart of who you are, David. And I'm just so pleased about that, because I think it's a great example for people that are dealing with change. I know, and you know, and the audience listeners probably know too, a lot of people who have been affected by this pandemic, where they might have been furloughed and now they're thinking about their next and what are they going to do? And they have skills, right? We at this kind of our second chapter of our career, there's a lot of us out there. I don't know if you've seen the numbers from the government that are being published every week and certainly on a monthly basis about small business ownership, and the number of new businesses being opened this year versus last year is up like 25% or more. It's an incredibly high number. And we tend to think that, oh, new businesses, those are going to be, you know, tech startups and all of that. Well, the majority of these new businesses, I think, are not. And it's the solopreneur, it's the person who's going to leverage their skill set in a different way and creating value, which is, again, I think a reason I wanted to spotlight what you're doing. Also, because I believe, and it's been my experience as a CEO and as a practitioner of, you know, trying to develop teams, because there's a value there. And you hit on it earlier with culture, that culture and being really process focused in terms of your people creates value for a company. And you saw it in your career in other companies, you know, these Fortune 500 companies. And you're also now seeing it with your business, which is called DG Consulting. And tell me about that. What was the inspiration to create DG Consulting? What does that stand for? And how do you help deliver value through better HR processes and culture to small businesses?
Yeah, Laurie, you know what's interesting is I did not set forth in the beginning to say that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and open up my own business. That was not in the cards. I mean, I didn't have an entrepreneurial spirit. I loved working in big companies. I felt comfortable. So it's ironic that, you know, I am a statistic of what you just described, that, you know what, I can be, you know, it can be more purposeful and to be intentional about opening up, you know, your own businesses. And it felt better for me to do so, right? So, you know, when I went through that transition of, okay, what do I want to do next? Again, asking myself, what do I want to be when I grow up? And when you start to look at your skill sets, right? When you kind of do like a resume review on yourself, like, okay, I've worked here for 5 years. I worked there for 10 years. I did a little bit of this. I was on this, you know, I had these many people working for me. I was, you know, on this bottom of the ladder, and you start to calculate what is your best move. So I would say, you know, if anyone is in that transition, it all begins with your why. Define your why. What is your purpose? What do you want to do? And when I really looked at it, I said, I want to inspire people. That's what matter of fact, it was, I wanted to inspire. You know, I've always been, you know, when I looked at my career, my athletic career, you know, I was always the captain. You know, I think I might have been the first person picked in gym class, and I would, you know, either I was picking the people or I was telling the person, pick that person. Oh, pick that, you know. So I was always in a position of either influence or authority, and I took a lot of pride in it. Right? It for me, it was a honor to be the captain of a football team. It was a privilege to be a director of a department or a manager of a team, and I took it seriously. So as I got into now, again, I'm not saying the back half of my nine, right? I still got a little something, right? But when I really looked at it, I said, what is the common denominator? What drives me? And what drives me is to inspire, whether it's people, processes, or things. And that is the foundation of my next decision, as well as the fabric of my company. We want to inspire people, whether that's a leader to do the right thing or to change a policy or to now think about their people first, to help them, create processes, whether it's from a compliance perspective or from a culture perspective. We wanted to inspire greatness. There's nothing better. And again, and I go back to the Bronco days. I had a phenomenal high school and college career, right? I mean, I had some great accolades, but there's nothing like being a part of a team that everybody has the same accolades that you had, and even more, right? Like competition, it was what we call friendly competition. You want to be around the best. You want to.
They make you better, right?
They'll make you better. There's no different when you're you're working in an office, or you're working in an executive team, or you're working in a company that people are there. You're getting in people with talent, diversity, like diversity of thought, diversity of presence. And next thing you know, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to work and I'm enthusiastic. I'm inspired. Like I need to say, I need to be on my A game, right? So I wanted to create that. I wanted to help people get to their A game, get on that, what I say, get a championship mindset. And and that inspired me to create my own business, which is called DG Coaching and Consulting. So part of the coaching is, for you as a business owner or a company to allow a consultant agency or firm to come into your organization, we ain't going to tell you what to do. We're going to help coach you. And just like in sports, you don't see the coach, he didn't play one down. He's not throwing a touchdown last night. The coach doesn't do that. The players do.
Right.
If you allow, as a business owner, we want to come into your organization and coach you on things that either it's best practices, whether it's foundational infrastructures, or if it's enhancing to take your organization to the next level. That's where the coaching came from. And the consulting piece is, again, we leave with recommendations, we leave with plans, we leave with processes to better help you as a leader to discover greatness. And I always say, if great consulting firms, we work ourselves out of a job. We tell you, we assess, we give recommendations. You start to deliver, and you're like, well, I don't need DG coaching and consulting, and you eventually fire us. That lets me know we do a great job. That's my job.
Well, there's a lot of really awesome things in what you just shared there with having a championship mindset and kind of answering the question, what is the difference between coaching and consulting? And now with the pandemic, what does this mean? I know you work with clients all over the country. So what does virtual training and coaching look like now? And how do you make it authentic? How does you and I are talking over Zoom right now, and it feels great. It's so awesome to see you, but we're not in person, right? And so if you're trying to coach up and you're trying to help make organizations better, are we all Zoomed out? Like how is this going to work virtually?
Well, it's funny. I was just in the summit yesterday, and a lot of that discussion was being talked about. And again, maybe that's the next, Amazon. Maybe that's the next Facebook. Maybe that's the next whoever develops that where you could, again, bring the human back into human resources or the culture back into technology. So it is an opportunity for everybody to take advantage of, yes, we were working remotely and we're protecting ourselves and our families. However, there is a lost art. There's something lost of getting 5 executives in a room talking about, a problem or forecasting a plan. You're missing some element. You're missing some of that energy and that vibe and that, for those that would like to work with others, you're missing that element. So for us, we challenge with making sure we hit, I call 3 different points of contact. And it's not only verbally, but how are you doing it verbally? Is it, through text? Is it through written communication? And is it through, phone or Zoom communication? And you don't have to do it, but you have to do it well. You really have to do it well. You have to know when you're zoomed out, right? And you need to revert back to, now it becomes an email, or now it just becomes a phone call, because you know what? I want to talk to you, but I don't want to see you, right? Because
right.
You know what? My dog's barking in the background, and my kids, so I need to continue it. But you know what? What's best suited for you, and or for the party. So it becomes really, again, still building relationships and building working relationships that best fit, the parties. So for us, we have opened up some travel and meeting some of the clients, and now it becomes, let's do that strategically, right? So maybe now we only meet once a quarter, maybe once a month, just to get that human touch, and maybe I need to go visit the office, as you're telling me, it's dead, Dave, or people are not as live. Well, I'm going to have to visit that and see that and smell that for me to get my own impression. So yes, it has to be a strategic type of visit. It's not every day. We're not talking every day. However, I think creating a communication plan with that client helps them and helps me either discover or uncover opportunities, but at least just fits the needs of those clients. And I think everybody's gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to be creative. You can't do the same things expecting, different results. You're gonna have to do things differently.
Right. I had an experience recently with a client where they wanted to do strategic planning, which is normally so effective in person, but I offered to do it remote. I said, why not give it a try? They said, no, we haven't seen each other for months. This is a reason. This was a compelling reason to be face-to-face. And this was a really small team, but they were a little bit zoomed out, and we did a social distance strategic planning session, and it was awesome, to have a lunch break. We went outside, and there were moments of that, just feeling really connected on what we were doing together for them, and, kind of putting together this three-year view of their business. A, they'd never done it before, and B, the timing just felt right for them because they needed to come back together. They needed that, like, as you said, this kind of different point of communication. And because the topic was so, it was strategy, right? It was important to really be connecting. And so I think we'll see some of that too, where, it's almost like perhaps a special event that brings teams together. But it is smart to have an overall approach. And it's also, I think, a good thing for leaders to be checking in with their people. Like, how are you doing? And there's just so much happened in 2020. This is a year we're already ready to get rid of, and move on to 2021. We could go on and on about all the things that have kind of not worked well in 2020. And I don't want to necessarily do that. My point is that I think as individuals and being authentic leaders, we do need a way to really check in with people and say, how are you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that it's almost a lost art because we never had to do that, right? So it's now coaching those leaders, saying, okay, before we want to get into business first, check in on them personally, right? See how homeschooling is.
Yeah.
If you want to bring all of them to work, we'll check on all of their important responsibilities. And I think, it comes easy to, I think, folks who put people before things, right? But a lot of corporations put things before people because, you know what, we need the product, we need on and on, all the things that need to come first. But when you really put people first and you lead people and you manage processes, then getting to know your people and understanding that they're in a good place to deliver absolutely everything that their job requirements ask them for, that's when you're going to get the most out of people. And then sometimes right now, those leaders who have made it because they were the drivers, they were the micromanagers, they're going to struggle getting the most out of their people. And, it's folks like you and myself that are out there just saying, hey, you're still great at what you do, but let's check in with your people first.
Yeah, for sure.
Make sure they're okay.
Yeah. So let's just wind down here with some quick hit questions. The first one for you is, if you could go back in time and give yourself advice at any point in your career, what would you say?
Oh, I would say go for it. Just go for it, and trust your. I always say this: trust your dopeness.
Trust your dopeness.
Trust your dopeness. You're dope. You're good. You're great, and don't allow your fears to not allow you to live your dreams.
I like that. If you could share, do you have any strange daily habits?
I'm an early bird, so I get up around 4:35 every morning. And I have a dog, so we walk my dog. I have a Rottweiler. And, everybody has the fear and things about a Rottweiler. And he's a puppy, right? He's a softie. But if you look at him, he looks scary. So I like to walk him without a leash. So for me to walk him without a leash, I have to walk him kind of in the middle of the night so I don't hear neighbors complain. And the only weird thing so we do our routine. We walk about 4 to 5 miles every morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we get it in. And we get done. He's tired. I'm tired. And I think the only thing that's just truly weird is when I get dressed after, I work out and do my routine, is I coordinate my my wardrobe with my socks. I'm a sock guy. My sock game is on point, Laurie. I will go anywhere to buy socks. Nice funky socks. They create my mood. They create my dress. So if you ever see me in person, you check my sock game. It is on.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's awesome. Do you have any favorite sayings or mantras, whether it's about entrepreneurship or anything else?
Yes, it's by one of my favorite motivational speakers, Les Brown. And I was able to read this book. I think it was his first book back in 1994. And it goes, don't go where the path may lead, but go where there is no path and leave a trail. And, when you talk about success, for me, another piece of not only knowing what your why is, but you also need to personally define what success looks like for you. Because success for you may not be for me. Somebody may be driven by money, fame, notoriety, whatever the case may be. And for me, when I define success as leaving a legacy, there's nothing I'm more proud of than being in the Hall of Fame of our high school, being in the Hall of Fame of my college. So here are the footsteps that my son could always have. So when I think about that mantra of leaving a trail, it is leaving a legacy. It is, having something that, folks, my family could say, hey, that was my son, my brother, my dad, my uncle, and you know what? That lives forever. So.
Yeah, it does live forever. That's a great quote. I'm sure there's going to be people that want to connect with you. What's the best way for folks to find you online, David?
You can reach me on my website, here's my company website first, and then I'll give you my email address. It's www.dgcoaching, and is one word, consulting.com, or you could reach me at dgamble@dgcoaching.com.
And I'll put that in the show link so people have it too. David, thank you so much. I feel like we had our own reunion here.
I know.
And thanks for not sharing any stories about me from high school.
Okay, you're welcome.
Actually, for the listeners, because I am trying to be more authentic. This is a video. For those of you that normally listen on audio, this video will be on the YouTube channel for Succession Stories. So yeah, somebody that knew me way back when, what might be one thing that you would want to share with the audience about me that they might be surprised to know?
Laurie, well, you were so, I just remember like we had the senior hall, right? We had the senior type of cafeteria that only the seniors could go into. If you didn't have a class, you could go there. And, this is the one thing I've always admired about you. I think I told you about this in our reunion. You always uphold yourself. Like we would sit there and I'd be around, we had the same group of friends, kind of, Jeff Killiandy's of the world. And you'd always be studying. You always had books. Like you always challenge yourself. And you just role modeled the behavior. And I think I told you it was like you demanded a respect because of what you did. What I always said, role model the behavior. And to me, people who are successful, people who are doing the right things, it's because they're doing the right things, right? They created a habit of behaviors. And, you know, I can't tell you I always had a book in my hand, you know, but I always just reminisce and I remember those times. And again, we'd be sitting in these tables and it would be a time that I would always see like why can't I be like her, right? You know, and not only were you're studious, but you're fun. You knew how to have the balance of, you talk about authenticity. You were authentic then, you're authentic now. And again, it begins with your behaviors, begins with who you are, begins with your why. And I bet you it also has to deal with your, you know, definition of success. And there's no secret. There's no secret. You just, the way you carried yourself, it was very respectful. It was just awesome. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, I'm friends with Laurie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's so great to have you on the show today, David, and have this conversation. And I look forward to staying in touch.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.